Kathy was a little concerned about the whole idea of a nanny. The idea of somebody else raising her infant grated on her like fingernails on a chalkboard, but it was an honored local custom, and it had worked out pretty well for one Winston Spencer Churchill. Miss Margaret had been vetted through Sir Basil's agency. Her own agency, in fact, was officially sanctioned by Her Majesty's government. Which meant precisely nothing, Jack reminded himself. He'd been thoroughly briefed in the weeks before coming over. The opposition, a British term also used at Langley, had penetrated the British intelligence community more than once. CIA believed they hadn't done so at Langley yet, but Jack had to wonder about that. KGB was pretty damned good, and people were greedy all over the world. The Russians didn't pay very well, but some people sold their souls and their freedom for peanuts. They also didn't carry a flashing sign on their clothing that said, "I am a traitor." Of all his briefings, the security ones had been the most tiresome. Jack's dad had been the cop in the family, and Ryan himself had never quite mastered that mode of thinking. It was one thing to look for hard data amid the cascade of crap that worked its way up the intelligence system, quite another to look with suspicion at everyone in the office, and yet expect to work cordially with them. He wondered if any of the others regarded him that way. Probably not, he decided. He'd paid his dues the hard way, after all, and had the pale scars on his shoulder to prove it. Not to mention the nightmares of that night on Chesapeake Bay. The dreams in which his weapon never fired, despite his efforts. Kathy's frantic cries of terror and alarm ringing in his ears. He'd won that battle, hadn't he? Why did the dreams think otherwise? Something to talk to a shrink about, perhaps, but as the old wives' tale went, you had to be crazy to go to a shrink. Sally was running about in circles, looking at her new bedroom, admiring the new bed being assembled by the removers. Jack kept out of the way. Kathy had told him he was unfit even to supervise this sort of thing, despite his tool kit, without which no American male feels very manly, which had been among the first things unpacked. The removers had their own tools, of course, and they, too, had been vetted by SIS, lest some KGB-controlled agent plant a bug in the house. It just wouldn't do, old boy. "Where's the tourist?" an American voice asked. Ryan went to the foyer to see who it... Dan, how the hell are you? It was a boring day at the office, so Liz and I came out to see how things are going for you. And sure enough, just behind the legal attaché was his beauty queen wife, the long-suffering Saint Liz of the FBI wives. Mrs. Murray went over to Kathy for a sisterly hug and kiss. Then the two of them went immediately off to the garden. Kathy loved the roses, of course, which was fine with Jack. His dad had carried all the gardening genes in the Ryan family and passed on none to his son. Murray gazed at his friend. "You look like hell." "Long flight. Boring book," Jack explained. "Didn't you sleep on the way across?" Murray asked in surprise. "On an airplane," Ryan responded. "It bothers you that much?" "Dan, on a ship you can see what's holding you up. Not in an airplane." That gave Murray a chuckle. "Better get used to it, bud. You're going to be building up a lot of frequent flyer miles hopping back and forth to Dulles." I suppose. Strangely, Jack hadn't really considered that when he'd accepted the posting. Dumb, he'd realized too late. He'd be going back and forth to Langley at least once a month. Not the greatest thing for a reluctant flyer. The moving going okay. You can trust this bunch, you know. Baz has used them for 20-plus years. My friends at the yard like them, too. Half of these guys are ex-cops. And cops, he didn't have to say, were more reliable than spooks. "No bugs in the bathroom? Great," Ryan observed. During his very short experience of it so far, Ryan had learned that life in the intelligence service was a little different from teaching history at the Naval Academy. There probably were bugs.